¡Hey! ¡Escucha!
Buenos días, buenas tardes, buenas noches, good morning, good afternoon, good night, whatever time you may be listening to this. My name is Che Gittins, and I am happy to be here today to share this information with you all. Today, we are going to be speaking about a very difficult topic for many Spanish learners, which is to differentiate between ser and estar. Ser and estar are two verbs in Spanish, which mean to be in English. And in English, we have one verb for to be. I am tall. She is dark. They are funny. It is red. All of these are examples of the verb to be. And the problem is that in Spanish we have two different ways of using this verb. So that means that for many people who are learning Spanish, they find it difficult to differentiate when is it that I must use ser and when is it that I must use estar. And that is what we will be discussing today. So, grab your notebook, grab your writing material, whatever you use to record things, whatever is your best method of learning, prepare that method because we are going to go right into this. So, we have to look at conjugation, right? Spanish and English have a very similar grammatical structure, and so as a result, there are certain things that are easier to understand because of that similarity. So, in other words, in English, we also have the verb to be, and this is the conjugation of it in English. For those who may not be familiar, right, conjugation is the process of breaking down a verb, and the reason why we conjugate is so that we can clarify who is speaking. So, I am, you are, he or she is, we are, they are. If you notice, a form of the verb matches up with whoever is talking, and that is the purpose of conjugation. We change the form of the verb to match it up with who is speaking or who is doing the action. So, this is the conjugation of the verb to be in English. And as you notice, most verbs, when you conjugate them, they look just like the infinitive form. The infinitive form of the verb is the verb without being changed. So to be, this is the infinitive form of the verb. It has not changed. When you change it now, you're conjugating it. Most verbs in English, they do not look any different when you change them. For example, let's say the verb to walk in English. I walk, you walk, they walk. If you notice, the verb has not really changed, right? However, am looks nothing like be. Is looks nothing like be. That's because it is an irregular verb. It doesn't follow the natural, it doesn't follow the rules, basically. So this is basically the same structure we have for verbs in Spanish. It's literally this pretty much the same thing in Spanish. It's just that it's different words, right? So you have estar and you have ser. And this is the conjugation of that. Just like how we saw the conjugation of it in English, this is the conjugation of it in Spanish. All right. So, this is for ser. If you notice, estar looks virtually pretty much the same as the original, right? With the exception of estoy, it looks kind of different. Ser, these words, eres, es, well, some, none of them follow the typical pattern of conjugation. It is an irregular verb, right? So it does not look at all like this original said. So in other words, you are going to just have to learn this conjugation. For those of you who are doing Spanish and those of you who have been doing Spanish for a while, you know that there is a pattern when you conjugate verbs. And when we say it's an irregular verb, we are saying that it does not follow that regular pattern, right? I'm not going to go into that pattern today, but just so that you have that structure in your mind, every time you conjugate a verb, it's supposed to follow a specific pattern. If any verb does not follow that pattern, such as this verb, that verb is an irregular verb. So this verb is very irregular because it does not follow the pattern. So let's talk about how we use the verb ser and how we use the verb estar, right? I like to just explain this in three different, or not necessarily three, but three different levels. Let's just say, um, the basic thing that people say most of the time is that the verb ser is used for more permanent things. I can say that yo soy muy alto, right? I'm very tall. La chica es extremadamente bonita. I can say that the girl is extremely pretty. Highlighted in red, you have the verb ser, or the verb to be. And we use this verb because these are cases that are describing permanent things which are characteristics of these people. These things don't change. If yo soy muy alto, I'm not going to wake up tomorrow being a midget. You understand? It is a permanent characteristic, and that's why we use the verb ser. On the contrast, it is generally said that we use the verb estar for more temporary things. I am so tired. They are busy right now. Yo estoy tan cansado. Ellos están ocupados ahora mismo. Right? These cases explain situations that are not permanent. I am so tired, yes, right now. But in the future, I will not be tired. Right? After I rest, I will not be tired. It's not a permanent condition. So, because it's not permanent, it's temporary, I use the verb estar. That is generally the the two explanations that I use for ser and estar. They say ser is permanent and estar is temporary. And while in most cases that is true, in some cases that is not. And these exceptions sometimes is what gives people trouble. Right? So moving to the next level, or moving to the next explanation, right? I'm going to take the explanation. We said that estar is used for temporary things. Instead of saying that estar is used for temporary things, rather, I'm going to say that estar is used for anything to do with a change in condition. If the condition has changed or is changeable, we use the verb estar. And a perfect example of that is with terms of life. When we're talking about if someone is alive or someone is dead, we use the verb estar, right? With the example on the screen, we don't say eres muerto, which means you are dead, right? That's what the sentence means. We don't say eres muerto. We say estás muerto. But why? Hey, didn't you say that if it's permanent things, you use the verb ser? So why is it that for death, which is depending on your worldview, death which might be considered by most a permanent thing, why is it that you're using the verb estar? Well, it is because the condition of the individual changed from life to death. There was a change in condition. Or rather, the condition has been or was changeable. The person was alive and is now dead. There was a change. And that is why you use estar in that case. Estar can also be applied to every usage of the verb estar. If we go back, right? I am so tired. They are busy right now. Yo estoy tan cansado, right? This is a condition. You are tired, yes, at the moment, yes. But it is a change in condition. You were not always tired, and now you are tired. You will not be tired after you rest. It is a change. They are busy right now. It is a condition at the moment. But you being funny, for example, or you being an interesting individual, that is not based on condition. That is a characteristic, and in that case, you would use the verb ser, because those things are permanent characteristics that describe you. I hope I'm making sense. I mean, I can't hear and see you to get your opinion, but I can just do this to the best of my ability. Now, taking it to another level, right, to try and help you to understand when you use ser versus when you use estar, there's an acronym for each of them. Ser we say it uses doctor. So, for descriptions, occupations, characteristics, times, origins, and relations. So, if what you are saying fits any of these things, you would use the verb ser. Ella es muy alta. She is very tall. Mi madre es doctora. My mother is a doctor. Yo soy muy energético. I am very energetic. These things are things that describe you. These things are permanent things. For occupation, mi madre es doctora. You might have a interjection. You might say, wait, what? But it isn't an occupation something that can change? It is a yes and no thing. Because for some occupations you are no longer this. But for example, let's say going on the screen. My mother is a doctor. If my mother stops working or stops practicing, does that mean she's no longer a doctor? No. It's a permanent thing. Now there are some jobs, true, there are some jobs that when you leave them, you are no longer that at all. Like for example, being a cashier. If you're a cashier and you leave that office, you're no longer performing that job. You're no longer a cashier, right? However, it is just, well, I don't say the rules, but when we talk about occupation, we use the verb ser. Time, son las 2 de la mañana. That's a tricky one to explain because you might say, hey, but time changes, doesn't it? But at that moment, it is 2 in the morning, and that is just the fact. We use the verb ser when it comes to time. Mis vecinos son de Santa Lucia. My neighbors are from St. Lucia. Permanent characteristic. Ella es relationships. Ella es mi novia. Mi novia. She is my girlfriend. You might say, hey, that can change. Yeah, that is why we use this acronym to help us. That is why people say that ser is used for permanent things, but that explanation is more just an introductory level explanation. Ser and ser for permanent things, estar for temporary things. Yes, while that may be true generally, that is just introduction, and when you get further in, you then come across examples where you might not think you have to use one, but it's really the other. You might come across situations where it seems like you have to use one, but it's really the other. How do you differentiate between those things? By understanding the other explanations as well. And that's why we bring it up a notch and we say, okay, estar is used for temporary things. Let's bring it up a notch. Estar is used for changes in condition. We say, okay, yes, ser is used for permanent things. Let's bring it up a notch. Let's use the acronym as well. Let's add it to our understanding. So to give it a little more, to make it more concrete, right? Estar, place, positions, locations, actions, conditions, emotions. El carro está atrás de nosotros. The car is behind us. Location, that's changeable, that's temporary. Locations, yo estoy en la casa, right? I'm in the house, that's temporary. Tú estás cocinando mucho. Actions, that is temporary. You are cooking a lot, that is temporary. Ella está muerta, it's a condition, she is dead, it is a condition. And emotions, nosotros estamos muy felices. We are very happy, that's a condition. So this is how we use the verb ser versus estar. To recap, ser is used for permanent conditions, we say that estar is used for temporary conditions, right? We bring it up a notch, we say ser, yes, it's used for permanent conditions, but we also have the acronym to help us know when to use it. Estar, yes, it's used for temporary conditions. I hope I said ser for permanent, I hope I didn't mess up. I hope my tongue didn't twist. But yes, ser is for permanent. So we say estar is used for temporary conditions, yes. We take it up a notch and we say no. Estar, yes, while it is used for temporary conditions, it is also used for changes in state, changes in condition. And while we have that explanation, we can bring that up a notch and say, okay, that is true, but we also have the acronym to help us, to add to our understanding. So here you have some explanations to help you understand the differences between ser and estar. What I will say, I do want to give a disclaimer, however, and say that the topic is not an easy topic. And the thing with languages is that it's almost not enough to learn it conceptually, in the sense that with a language, if you want to learn it, like really learn it, like know it like the back of your hand, the way that you truly do that is by spending time in the language, by consuming person speaking it, by like listening to people speaking the language, by interacting, forcing yourself to engage others in that language, by just consuming that content. That is a hard sure way to really solidify the concept, because without that, I dare say that it is almost impossible to fully get it. Yes, you may know the rules. Yes, you may understand it conceptually, and yes, it will help you to do your exams and so on and so forth. But if you are looking for you to be able to immediately tell when to use which one without thinking too much and so on, it's going to require some time in language. So I do want to just thank you for listening to the video. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to whoever showed you this video. I'm sure they can they can get you back to me. But you can leave questions in the comments if comments are available for this video. But that is ser versus estar. I hope you understood, and I'll see you in the next one.